I saw her face through the window on the door. It was a new face. She looked disgusting, like any other whore in school. As she took her steps towards my desk, I cringed as her body spray wafted towards my nostrils. She sat down without a word and didn't speak up until the teacher called for attendance. I mumbled "here" as the teacher flew past the rest of the names. I could hear whispers echoing from each side of me as to who this girl was. It was depressing how I wanted to edit my previous statement. She wasn't a whore. She just wanted to be one. The way her hair flipped revealed split ends. The makeup caked on her face barely concealed her freckles. Her outfit appeared as if it was picked out by a blind Sunday school teacher and later torn up by bare hands to reveal copious amounts of skin. The bell rang. Thank God! I pushed my way through the poor excuses for human beings in the hall to get to my next class. I plopped down in my chair, getting my mind off of everyone. I looked up, not even 2 seconds later, to notice the same cunt strut through the doorway. I was getting irritated now. She shouldn't even have the right to breathe polluted air. Realizing she was walking past my desk to be a seat far from me, I sighed with relief. 2 hours next to her would bring me to my breaking point, let alone 1 hour. Her seat was next to my best friend, Jonathan. I knew that he would have the same opinion of her as me. I mean, who else doesn't think of her the way I do? She should be kicked out of school. I would pay to watch someone tilt her head back and drop bricks on her teeth. As she sat down, I noticed Jonathan giving her a friendly smile. Why did he do it? I have no clue. I saw both of their mouths making words. I couldn't make out of anything they were discussing because of the distance and chatter of the students. They were laughing. Is she really going to start flirting with a random guy on her first day? I was furious at this point. I had not the slightest clue what was going on through Jonathan's mind. I just wanted to break through the noise of the classroom and yell, "Get away from him!" But my mouth remained locked up. Being forced to sit through 70 minutes of my best friend and a tramp flirting was more than enough to throw me over the edge. I didn't even desire to make any contact with him for the rest of that day. He should know what he did wrong. What an idiot. I needed to tell Ellie about this. She will hardly believe it. Maybe she'll talk a bit of sense into Jonathan. Ellie was the type of person to tell anyone what was on her mind, regardless of the consequences. She had no filter from her head to her mouth. Usually she's the type of person I fear. Honestly, I still watch myself around her. But we have a sort of developed a friendly bond since freshman year. When class ended, I almost bolted for the next one. I had my next class with Ellie, and I already knew everything I had to inform her of about the new girl. Seeing Ellie's face gave me total relief. I knew I was able to vent to her about everything on my mind, and knew that she would most likely support me through every sentence of my opinion. When I walked up to her, I didn't even greet her. I just erupted and vomited out all of my words in one big rainbow of bitterness. I told her everything that happened. I told her what she tried to look like, how conceited she was, and how she was flirting with Jonathan. As I was telling her this, her eyes grew and she started to laugh. She was already disturbed by her presence too, I could tell. She laughed sometimes to show her irritation. Ellie hated a lot of girls in our school. She has even mentioned how she hated girls in general. She had a large amount of influence on a majority of people. When she had an opinion, it overruled everyone else's opinion through her eyes. After some time, it did. If she hated someone, everyone hated that someone. That is why I came to Ellie. She nodded and told me that this girl will soon come to be one of the most hated persons in the school. She let me know that she would also inform Jonathan of his wrongdoing. I felt so relieved. School seemed to fly by from there. I refused to accept her existence. It was sort of difficult to do so in the hour she sat next to me, but I managed. I soon began to forget about her at times, but every time my eyes accidentally caught hers, I would nearly gag. My hate would grow stronger each time. Jonathan and her continued to flirt every day. I tried to ignore it, but I just couldn't. I refused to continue talking to him now due to this. I thought he was better than this. 3 days passed with nothing new. I have started to notice people talking about her. They weren't kind words either. Sometimes people would start snickering as they walked past her. It made me feel satisfied to know other people knew who this girl truly was. I glanced down at my lunch tray. I wasn't even processing the items on it, I was just thinking about her. A loud smash brought me back to reality. I looked over to see that girl on the ground. I was totally puzzled as to what happened. As I was trying to process what had just occurred, I glanced up and everything came obvious when I see Ellie behind her laughing. Ellie's laugh always sounds positive and delightful, even when there's an evil meaning behind it. This made her laugh more wicked in reality. I looked down at the girl to witness milk and applesauce smeared all down her shirt. Everyone was laughing, including me. This made my day almost terrific. She slowly stood up with misty eyes and paced quickly to the door, leaving the cafeteria. Her tray with remnants of smashed food was left on the floor. Ellie walked towards my table quickly with a pleased look on her face. She claimed the seat beside me without making eye contact. She then slowly looked up at me and grinned. I started to laugh. We were both eventually at the verge of tears, laughing. Ellie was able to assist me with completely disregarding my concentrated hate for this girl. I took a bite of my sandwich. Ellie and I were pleased with the image of the girl covered in her own lunch. I can't even believe Ellie was able to do it. I wasn't shocked by her nerve, but just the fact she managed to trip that girl without a single teacher witnessing the act. Either way, it would have been worth it. Ellie had the nerve to do anything, even if it came to murder. After lunch, I made my way to my next class. I felt at ease. It took me half an hour to realize that the girl wasn't sitting by me. I didn't really care where she was. I'm more than sure she persuaded her mum to come pick her up, because she was so embarrassed. She probably made up some lie and told her mum that she was sick. From that much embarrassment, I can understand why she left. Jonathan wouldn't even look at me the next hour. He really didn't get to me that much. There's no need for him to get pissed off at me just because his little slut went face first into her own lunch by Ellie's hands. She was asking for it. Even though Ellie was the one who tripped her, I could tell he suspected that I was part of the incident as well. Hopefully, this is enough for him to realize that no one likes her. It had been 2 days since the incident in the cafeteria happened. Everyone was talking about it. I would always smirk whenever I heard whispers about it behind me or in the halls. Almost everyone in the school disliked her now. I hoped she was aware of it. Ellie told me yesterday that if she still wasn't aware of how much she was hated by next week, she would be sure to inform her on Monday. I was on my way to my next hour, which was the hour I had with her. I sat down in my seat and tried not to look at where her seat was. I didn't even look to see if she was there or not. Her presence was spoiled when I heard her cough. I just rolled my eyes as I took out my journal to take notes. We weren't doing much today in class, so time should go by faster. After about 40 minutes, the teacher pulled up our last page of notes to copy down, and she took a seat and started on her own work. It was dead silent in the classroom until I heard that girl next to me drop down all of her books and walk quickly out of the classroom without saying a word. She left the door open. The teacher looked up from her desk and seemed puzzled. So did the students. I sighed with relief and continued my notes. At the end of the day, I walked out the door to see her nasty face only a few feet away from the lockers. I had grown tired for her failed attempts at fishing for attention. I stomped towards her with only one goal on my mind. You worthless bitch! You have done nothing but damage our already shitty school. You've contaminated my best friend. You're wasting everyone's time, including mine. You reek of being a whore. You look like a wannabe slut. You are worth nothing to anyone here. You're a fucking disease. You mean less than nothing here. Nobody wants to get close to you. You aren't welcome here. Go back to where you belong and don't ever come back. I finally caught my breath after my speech. I looked around to see everyone silent except for a few snickering students, Ellie being one of them. With the damaged look on her face, I knew I'd broken her. I knew I had completed my goal. Hopefully she'll go back to the slums now. Good riddance to the hall. Monday had come, and I reluctantly got out of bed. I trudged to school, noticing the neighbours conversing in harsh tones. Not giving into any mind of it, I finally reached school. Some people greeted me with glares, some greeted me with smiles, and some gave me props for my speech last week. I greeted them all back with indifference. I walked past the student body until I finally reached my classroom to sit in my seat. After the class bell rang, signalling it was time for class to start, I was pleased to see that the seat beside me was unoccupied. Before the teacher began her lesson, the intercom came on and told us to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, like every other morning. After the pledge, a new message was given to us. Students of Brookside High School, let us please extend our moment of silence for the lost souls for not only our soldiers, but also for our fellow student, Rosalind Jane. We all dutifully stood for a minute in absolute silence. I quickly wondered if the girl who sat next to me possessed the name spoken on the intercom. The thought quickly flew away as the intercom resumed. Rosalind Jane was found dead this morning outside of this high school. The police suspect that she jumped to her death and ended her life by her own hands. Everyone around me started to murmur, point, and stare. This school had never dealt with a suicide before. No one knew how to react, so we just decided not to. I paid no mind and set my head down as the rest of the announcements continued on. Class finally resumed after the announcements. The teacher explained our assignment. We were to write a research paper on a topic of choice. I looked around for a computer to start typing, but every seat was taken up except one that wasn't working, and the computer that girl sat at. I found it to be a bit nasty to take a seat, but I wasn't just going to stand around waiting for a different computer to become unoccupied. I took a seat at the computer to do research, disregarding the announcements. Sure, it was upsetting, but I felt as if it had no relevance to me. After a few minutes of research, I cursed myself for forgetting to save the page. When I went through the history, I found a peculiar website address. I moved my mouse up and clicked on it to see a familiar face. It was that girl's picture, with a disturbing caption underneath. The Monster's Diary. I quickly came to realize that this page really was her diary. This girl was Rosalind Jane. Her entries proceeded as follows.
10/28/12. Dear Diary, the first day was absolutely awkward. I could feel eyes on me from every corner. I knew that my pathetic attempt to make my outgrown clothes look modern was the first thing people judged about me. I felt bad for disgracing my own private school's name and looking this way. I already hate the people here. I don't know what I'm going to do about the school here. The depression is getting worse, and the medication is getting expensive. I pray that the first day does not foreshadow the rest of my days at this high school. 10/31/12. Dear Diary, today is Halloween. I'm sitting on my porch, handing out candy to all the children passing by. I remember when I was little and so innocent. Nothing mattered about the clothes you wore. All you had to do in school was color pages. at the same time, I was pretty sad then too. I never had the biggest box of crayons. 10/3/12. Dear Diary, today at lunch, a girl I didn't even know tripped me. The food on my tray ended up all down one of my only good shirts I had. Everyone was laughing. I stood up feeling defeated. I proceeded to the office to call my mom. I didn't have any emotions at this point. I just felt like I was stronger than this. I called my mom and told her what happened. And she told me she was coming to pick me up. As I went to sit down, I realized the lady in the office went to the back room and came out with a towel. She handed it to me gently and gave me a sympathetic smile. 11/5/12. Dear Diary, the entire school population despises me at this point. All but one, and his name is Jonathan. I sit next to him in my calculus class. He is so kind and always manages to make me smile. We aren't crushing on one another. This is just a strong and friendly bond. The way he manages to make me laugh is something I have longed to experience. He made each of my days slightly better, and I'm thankful for him. 11/10/12. Dear Diary, I can't handle this anymore. The medication has run out. People are throwing rocks at me, kicking me, calling me names. This is like the worst scenarios that could have occurred right in front of me. I prayed that things would not get better. Every night I sat on my bed. I held my hands together and got on my knees. I prayed and prayed until tears formed in my eyes. Where was the miraculous God everyone talked about? I don't know what to do anymore. I'm done trying to believe. Let's see how this all works out. 11/16/12. Today, someone made me realize something. I'm nowhere near where I belong. I belong in hell. Tonight I slay the monster. Dear Diary, thank you for always being here for me. This is the last time I will be seeing you. Farewell.
I exited out of the window and slowly got up, walking away from the computer. I felt this absolutely horrifying emotion that words cannot express. My thoughts were shooting every which way. I was so judgmental. She was nowhere near what I thought her out to be. I didn't even know her name. Jonathan and her, all of those things I said to her. As much as I wanted to cry, I couldn't. She wasn't the monster, I was. Her funeral was held at dawn the next day. Many people were there, including people from my school. I was there as well. I had the biggest bouquet of flowers. I wanted to say sorry to her, to Rosalind. I wanted to say sorry to Rosalind Jane. From the looks I received, it came to my attention that no one would let me. I wasn't accepted here. I wasn't welcome. I didn't have permission to apologize. 2 students wouldn't even let me pass the church door. Jonathan was one of them. He just looked down at me, holding his arm in front of the entrance. Everywhere I turned, I received glares and hate. I was the cause. I walked home alone, trying to put the pieces together. I held up the bouquet of flowers that I was supposed to give to Rosalind. Looking at it only made me more upset. It just kept letting me know that I failed to give it to her. I tossed the bouquet to the side of the road, not looking back. When I got home, I proceeded downstairs into the basement. I sat down on a small couch and cried. I don't know how long I cried or what I was thinking about. After what seemed like hours, I cried myself to sleep. I had a series of dreams after falling asleep, all quite similar. Everywhere I looked was totally black. Quick flashes of what seemed to look like an arm appeared in front of me. Letters started to appear every time it flashed. Blood was dripping down the arm and letters carved into it spelled out lies. After that it went to black again, where I temporarily stopped dreaming. It's hard to understand how dreams can veer from one to another. Another arm was flashing in front of me. At least I thought it was an arm. Was it a leg? Carving started to appear again, with slightly less blood. The word failure was the word made similar as the last words. This time, it didn't go black afterwards, and the image of a girl appeared in front of me. The face was slightly to my right. I was looking forward, but my eyes couldn't move towards the face to get a closer look. I could only see through the sides of my eyes that it was Rosalind. Her eyes seemed to be blacked out, with unbelievably long lashes. Her hair flowed down her chest and over her arms. Her face was almost like porcelain. What was even more disturbing was that she had absolutely no mouth. The face stood still and I could not look towards it. I didn't know what was about to happen. I just wanted to cry, but I couldn't. She just stood there, and even though her eyes were black, I knew she was staring right through me. Suddenly, blood trickled from her forehead down into her right eye slowly. The blood went into her tear duct, making only that eye blink, and then passed through and out the other side of the eye, trickling down to the side of her cheek. I knew I had to say sorry to her. I wanted to say sorry to her, and she craved it. I opened my mouth, and as soon as I did, she moved point blank in front of my face and started to scream the most horrifying scream. It sounded like a mix between demon and child. Her mouth ripped open with strings of flesh breaking off as her mouth got wider and wider. I instantly woke up screaming and crying. I quickly got up from the couch, but as I did, my head started to pound, and it sounded like flesh was ripping inside my head and veins were being pulled. I grabbed onto my head and looked down. The pain was so unbearable I couldn't even think. Not even about the pain. Blood popped out of both my nostrils and then trickled down my neck. Pain stopped and I ran to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. My eyes were the reddest I've ever seen them, but I know it was all from the crying. Blood was all over my shirt. I quickly changed it before my parents came home. Horrified as to what happened, I sat down for a while to think. An hour later, I stood up and slowly took my steps to the closet. I knew what I had to do. I opened the closet to find an old chest lying on the floor. The chest belonged to my father, and I knew exactly what was in it. I opened the chest to take out his pistol, took a deep breath, shut my eyes, and put the barrel to my head. If they won't let me say sorry, I'll say sorry to her myself.